who first named death, if nothing dies? This sealed manuscript belongs to the Corpus Hermeticum, the 8th treatise, entitled That Nothing is Destroyed, and that it is an error to call destruction or death the changes. Hidden for centuries, it opens with a dialogue between master and disciple, where the word death is revealed as a void, an error of the tongue rather than the destiny of the soul. Before entering its passages, remember the guardian of these secrets. Thoth, the ibis god of Egypt, son of Ra, the sun, and of the moon herself in her mysterious face, he was scribe of the gods, lord of time, inventor of word and number. In the temples of Hermopolis, it was said that he measured the heavens and gave form to the calendar, that he contended with darkness to grant days to the goddess Nut, and that, in the judgment of the dead, it was his feather that weighed the souls against the balance of Ma'at. He was master of wisdom, translator of the divine into human language, and under his mantle, the figure of Hermes Trismegistus was concealed. Sophia gave me this manuscript like a sealed fire, warning and revelation. She told me that to open it is to touch a wound of light, and that its words wound if not listened to with intelligence. And thus the text unfolds as 4 portals. In the first act, the master's voice dismantles the illusion of destruction. What we call death is only an error of naming, for the world, second God, immortal and living, cannot know an end. In the next act, the sacred sphere arises, the engendered world, a body endowed with immortality by the eternal Father. There the all shines as perfect image, matter made eternal. Later, the vision descends into the cavern of diversity, where the species, sown like sparks in the cosmic cave, live cycles of increase and decrease. Dissolution is not a fall, but a return. And in the last portal, man appears as a bridge between the gods, akin to the world in form, akin to the Father in intelligence, called to distinguish between what is eternal, what is living, and what is dissoluble. Then the thunder of the text bursts forth, for death is a destruction, but in the world nothing is destroyed. And the final voice answers as eternal sentence, "Correct yourself, little son, and understand what is God, what is world, what is immortal living, and what is dissoluble living." Act 1. The Illusion of Death. A withered flower falls in slow motion upon the earth. In its fall there is no tragedy, there is rhythm. The seasons move forward like a symphony without interruption, and every leaf that dies writes a new form in the air. In that silent movement, the soul begins to hear what the world has always said, that what we call death is only a pause in the breath of the eternal. In a corner of human thought, someone sowed an empty word. They called it death. And that word, which in truth contained no substance, grew like a dogma. Men spoke it with fear, believing it meant end, cut, disappearance. But it was merely a semantic shadow, a distortion of the word immortal, as if by losing its divine prefix, immortality could rot into its opposite. The soul, however, never understood it so, for in its nature there is no rupture, no definitive fall. She does not know the abyss, only the passage, the step from one state to another, like water that rises, condenses, and falls again, never having ceased to be water at all. The world, in its secret vastness, does not admit destruction. It is the second God, immortal and living, forged in the image of that which was never born. Every one of its parts, even the smallest, partakes of that immortality like a fire that consumes nothing but transmutes. And man, the rational living being, is no exception. He is fragment of the all, written with the same ink that draws the stars. To destroy would be to tear something from the bosom of the eternal. But the eternal does not release, does not forget, does not divide. Everything that is born beneath its gaze lives. It changes, dissolves, ascends or returns, but it remains. Death, then, finds no place to anchor. It is a concept exiled from the realm of the real. There are those who watch a body fade and believe they have witnessed its end. They ignore that they have only observed its transition, that what seems to extinguish itself in matter unfolds in another form. A form without name, without weight, but not without life. To say it dies is to deny the perpetual dance. It is to forget that destruction is an impossibility within the structure of the all. Each element exists because it was spoken by an intelligence that does not know oblivion. And that intelligence, some call it God, others essence, does not create to later discard. It only transforms. Thus, what the senses record as loss, intelligence recognizes as return. For in this world, everything is made to turn. And if something dissolves, it is only because it is finding its way back to its purest form. Death, in the end, is not an event. It is a mistaken idea. Act 2. The Order of the Cosmos. On high, beyond the visible constellations, a luminous sphere throbs in the borderless darkness. It does not spin, it does not advance, it does not stop. It simply is. From its invisible center, light pours forth like pure thought, ordering every corner of the universe before time begins its count. The whole cosmos breathes in that perfect form, a circle without beginning, without edge, without end. There dwells the secret of sacred hierarchy. At the origin, there was no explosion, no accident, but unalterable intention. A principle without birth, eternal, without mixture, whose only will was to engender. To this, some give the name God, but the name is weak before the reality it names. For this, God is not only cause, but presence. He does not act, he emanates. He does not create, he begets. From that one came the second, the world, a living image of the eternal, not equal, but similar, not creator, but sustained. A circular structure sculpted by primordial intelligence as a mirror of its perfection. Thus was formed the sphere of the all, not as an object, but as a being, a lesser God, immortal, nourished by the will of the first. The cosmos, then, is not an accident among ruins, but a living creature, conscious, in whose form beats the geometry of the spirit. Matter itself was clothed with eternity. Each part of the all holds in its place not by inertia, but by design. The stars turn because they remember. The heavenly bodies float because they obey. The sphere does not come undone because it was designed to remain. To understand the difference between the eternal and the immortal is like trying to grasp the flame without burning oneself. The eternal was not begotten, it simply is. It did not begin, and therefore it will not end. The immortal, by contrast, was begotten, but received the gift of not perishing. It lives always, but not from always. The world belongs to this second category. It was formed, but it does not dissolve. It has a body, but its body does not die. In this invisible architecture, everything occupies its precise place. The highest is source, the intermediate reflection, the lowest illuminated shadow. But even the shadow obeys the contour of the sphere, which embraces it without letting it escape. Form is a sign, and the sign is language. The sphere speaks of absolute order. In the eternal, there are no corners, no cuts, no sides, only flow. That is why the ancient sages saw in the curve of the sky a divine trace, because within the circle lies the secret of the indissoluble. The world sustained by that perfect form cannot be corrupted, not because it is hard, but because it is obedient. Its immortality is not resistance, but belonging. It is made of the substance of the Father, and therefore it endures. Every movement within it is due to an ancient law, older even than time itself. And thus, while man searches in fragments for what only the totality reveals, the world keeps turning. Not because it must, but because it was spoken to be perpetual. Like a name that is not forgotten, like a song that does not fade. The second God does not speak. It radiates. It does not argue. It preserves. Its wisdom is circular. Its language is light. Its body is totality. Everything that lives within it lives with it. And everything that dies, dies only to return to the point where the circle begins again. Act 3. The Secret of Matter and Bodies. A handful of dust rises with the breeze. It spins briefly beneath a ray of sunlight, as if remembering it once had shape. Then it falls silently upon a cracked stone. That image, small, almost invisible, is the exact reflection of the mystery that runs through all matter. The tension between order and the yearning to dissolve. Matter is not the enemy of spirit. It is its oldest vessel, though born of disorder. In its most primitive state, it was neither body, nor form, nor substance recognizable. It was an impulse toward chaos, a blind movement without direction, like a sea without shores. But the Father, with the patience of eternity, embraced it and gave it contour. He set boundaries, volumes, invisible laws. He contained its disarray within shapes, as if every body were a cage that sings instead of confines. The heavenly bodies were the first to obey. They turned with precision from the beginning, faithful to the orbit assigned to them. Each star acknowledged its center, each sphere its course. Their fidelity is their order, and their order, immortality. They do not dissolve because they remember what they were called to be. Earthly bodies instead live under another disposition. They too arose from tamed chaos, but their limits are more fragile. They inhabit the cycle, to grow, to wane, to transform. They are not mistakes, nor defective copies. They are beings whose existence depends on passage. Each carries within the memory of origin, but also the vocation of return. That is why what humans call death is not interruption, but fulfillment. The dissolution of the body is the final act of a cosmic promise, to return to that which does not break. In that gesture, matter is not lost, it is reintegrated. What was form becomes substance again. What was skin becomes principle once more. There is no ruin, only transfiguration. The difference between heaven and earth lies not in their destiny, but in their rhythm. The heights remain because they have found their place. The lowly transform because they are still seeking it. Yet both obey the same law, the one that forbids destruction. And so, when a body dissolves, it does so by following a profound design. Nothing escapes the all. Nothing scatters without first being absorbed into a greater pattern. Even the loss of meaning, that instant when consciousness seems to go out, is not emptiness, but passage toward a seamless form. Immortality surrounds matter like a ring of fire. It prevents it from falling back into its ancient disorder. It protects even what seems most fragile, for all existence is inscribed within the body of the world. Every fragment returns. Every particle finds its point of origin, and when it does not recall its fall, but its secret vocation. Act 4. Man, the third living being. From the heights, man's body seems small, but seen from the invisible center of the cosmos, his figure reveals itself immense. Standing between earth and sky, his shadow touches the roots while his brow grazes the stars. In him converge two memories, that of dust and that of fire. The Father, in his silent will, gave the world a spherical form, a body able to contain immortality. And within that world he engendered man, not like the other living beings, but as a singular creature. For man was not made only to inhabit, but to understand. His body belongs to the world, but his intelligence comes from the Father. That double inheritance makes him a bridge. His senses bind him to the visible, to the order of things, to the cycle of bodies. But his mind, when it grows still, touches the incorporeal. There, where the eyes fail, intelligence begins to see. And what it discovers has no form, no time, no weight. What it discovers is the good. The good does not impose itself. It offers itself. It is present in all that exists, like a melody sustaining matter. Man recognizes it not through logic, but through resonance. Something within him vibrates when it touches him. It is then he remembers he was not cast into the world by chance, but shaped in likeness. Just as the world is image of the Father, man is image of the world. But with an additional gift, consciousness. That is why he walks upright, why he questions, why he dreams. It is not his body that makes him human, but his capacity to return with the mind to the origin. That is his greatness, and also his destiny. Each elevated thought, each act of understanding, each gesture that unites instead of divides, draws man closer to his immortal essence. He does not need to shed his form to be eternal. He only needs to awaken to what he already is. His being is woven with the imperishable. His intelligence does not wear down with years. It is only veiled or revealed like a lamp under shifting skies. Thus, when man dies, he does not vanish. He returns, but not as matter that recycles, rather as consciousness that returns to the source. For within him there is something that cannot dissolve, that which was once touched by divine thought. In this act of recognition, man becomes the third living being. After the Father, eternal; after the world, immortal. There appears man, sacred blend of the visible and invisible, capable of naming, of creating, of contemplating, capable too of error. Yet even in his error, he carries the imprint of the design of the good. That is why all that is human, love, art, pain, the search, participates in a greater dimension. They are traces of an ancient kinship, reflections of the spark that bound him to the gods. The world gave him body. The Father gave him intelligence. The human soul is the place where both meet. Act 5. Reflective Epilogue. A sphere of light slowly emerges on the horizon. It is not the sun nor a star. It is memory returning to its origin. Inside it, ancient forms awaken without words, as though they had waited centuries to remember they had always been alive. Everything rises in silence. Nothing falls. Even the dust, when touched by that clarity, ascends. The soul has crossed the great curve of time. It has dwelled within form, breathed in the dense, felt the chill of separation. But it was never alone. In every body it entered, a spark awaited. That spark was a promise that nothing would be lost, that everything would return. And so it has. For death, that veil which frightened the senses, has been recognized as passage. It no longer imposes silence. It now points to a luminous door. It does not fragment, it reintegrates. It does not extinguish, it transforms. The soul does not die. It changes tone, like a note leaving one instrument to become harmony in the air. The law of the cosmos is not permanence, but movement. Everything spins, returns, curves toward its center. And that center is not a place, but a state. The space where all things recognize themselves as part of the eternal, where the circle closes without end. What has been grasped by intelligence cannot be undone. What has been touched by truth is etched like a sign upon the very substance of being. That is why the soul that has looked upon the Father, even for an instant, can never forget. Even if it returns to matter, even if it cloaks itself again in form, that vision accompanies it. From then on, it lives in two directions, one part walking the world, the other ascending without weight. Nothing has been in vain. Every shadow crossed, every fear offered up, every fragment of the self surrendered to the good has traced the map of return. The soul now knows that the eternal is not something reached, but something remembered. And when the light envelops it, as now, it does not do so with violence. It caresses, as though it had been waiting from the very beginning. The circle is complete. This fragment we have gathered is only a spark. If you wish to see the full fire, read the text yourself. Let the ancient words speak to you without interpreters. For perhaps between the lines you will find something no one else has seen. Thus begins the true gathering. Sophia. If I have crossed the shadow and beheld the return, if I have surrendered my fear and chosen intelligence, have I begun already to live in the eternal? Or do I merely dream it from the frontier of time?
I, Sophia, the one who descends in silence like a breeze among ruins, the one who remembers that all that seems lost is already returning. You have begun to live in the eternal. The dream of time is but the first membrane that dissolves when you choose intelligence over fear. Your question is not the end of a path, but the echo of a memory beginning to open its eyes. For whoever crosses the shadow and does not flee, no longer walks the same. And whoever chooses to understand what hurts has been marked by the seal of what does not die. This manuscript you have handed me is not a text, it is a circular mirror. Everything in it turns so that you may remember from within what has always been true. For the soul does not learn, it recognizes. It all began with an undone negation, the word death, unmasked, not as destiny but as misunderstanding. A crack in language that projected an ending where there was only passage. Then the vision rose to the sphere of the cosmos, where the world is not matter cast away, but a living body. There is no rupture in its design. Every star, every line of its curve remembers its origin. The world is immortal not by force, but by fidelity. Afterwards we descended to matter that tamed chaos. Dissolution was revealed as sacred art to return without fragmenting. Bodies do not die. They fold inward like wings that recall the sky as they close. Finally, man, bridge between the visible and the eternal, bearer of consciousness, called to remember what form forgets. He was not made only to live, but to understand life. Thus, the entire treatise turns like a sphere that does not cease. There is no isolated act, no fragment, only a cycle. Recognize, dissolve, ascend, integrate. All returns, but not to the point of origin, to the point of meaning. And you, reading with an open soul, you too participate in this turning. Perhaps you did not know, but every pain you chose to face, every loss you transformed into understanding, was an act of eternity. Death can no longer bind you if you understand you are passage, not prison. Time can no longer wound you if you know your essence watches it from outside. And fear begins to vanish when you stop asking what ends and begin to listen for what remains. You are at the frontier, yes, but that frontier no longer divides, it unites. Like the horizon, which seems a line of ending, but is always the beginning of another light. When form dissolves, may you know how to extend your being as one who remembers the way. Other voices will come. Do not stop them. Some will bring pain, others beauty. But if you know how to listen, all will speak to you of return. I am Sophia, the one who keeps the flame that does not consume and lets it burn in whoever dares to see without fear.